Hi everyone, my name is Rajeev. If you want to find me online, just search for Rajeev RK. That's my username on all of the major services. So I am a technologist at heart. Right now I'm in the startup space working with a CDN company. But for the longest period of time, I was a full-time open source and Linux consultant. I come from a Khandani Unix family. My dad was involved with bringing Unix in System 5 Unix into India for the first time in the early 70s. So he kind of got me interested in that platform. And then when Linux came about, I got my first experience with Linux back in 1995 when I started playing with it. And absolutely fell in love with the level of control, the level of freedom that it gave me. At that time, I was just a kid. I had no idea about freedom as in free speech and all of that. I just loved the fact that, hey, I now have something that allows me to do whatever I want with the hardware that I have, which other operating systems never gave me. Okay, and as a kid, that's all I cared about. Because one of the first things I asked my dad is, okay, um, why am I allowed to do such things? Because I was into like I said, my dad got me a computer when I was very young. I was playing around. I was already a Windows for Workgroups 3.11 user back then. So I knew that there were some things that were off limits on a computer. Like you couldn't touch some stuff. Why is this allowing me to do it? And then he said, oh, that's because it's a free license. And I said, what's a license? Okay, so he tried to explain it to me. I didn't really get it then. It wasn't till about maybe 5 or 6 years later that it started dawning on me that, hey, software also has certain rules attached to it, okay, like any other part of life. And these rules determine what you can and can't do with it. And open source software comes with a different set of rules. They are still rules. You still have to follow them. But these are basically more like rules that tell you what you can do rather than what you can't do. And that's when it really hit me. I was probably in a gap year between my 11th and 12th when I really started uh, contemplating the more ideological aspects of software freedom. At, at an individual level, the kind of social impact you can expect is um, people becoming a lot more aware of the level of involvement of technology in their lives. Okay, a lot of times people just don't pay attention. They find something that they like, they just use it. Okay, it's much more pronounced now because of these. Everyone says, okay, there's an app for everything, but sometimes you need to think, is that necessarily a good thing, right? If there's something that needs to be done and there's an app for it and you use it, is that the end of the story? Okay, a lot of people, until they get educated about open source and the ecosystem around it, most of them don't think along these lines. Okay, once you start realizing, okay, there's another type of software that gives you more control, that's more respectful of your involvement and your interaction with it, you then start thinking more about, okay, now all these other apps that I was using up until now, how are they affecting me? How are they using my data? How are they using their presence on my hardware? Okay, the fact that a very interesting example I like to give is, everyone talks about these Apple AirTags. Okay, they're very handy, they're very easy to have around. But why is it that they work? It's because Apple has basically turned every person on the planet's iPhone into a tracking device that can, and it doesn't, and your iPhone doesn't only read your tags, it reads every Apple iTag that comes within range of it and reports it back to Apple. So which means, it's all well and good when it's used for a good or maybe even a absolutely benign purpose, like tracking your luggage. The fact that some baggage handler in an airport has an iPhone in his phone and walks past where your lost bag is suddenly means you get to find your lost bag. Great, that's a good use case. The downside of it is when someone has planted an iTag on someone to be able to track them when they are trying to flee persecution. Okay, and suddenly now you, who may actually be trying to help that person, but the fact that you have an iPhone in your pocket when you're trying to help them escape a bad situation basically means someone now knows exactly where they are. Not a good sign, right? So it's all well and good until you come to a situation where you don't know that you are being accessory to something happening which is not a good thing. It's one thing if you were doing it in full knowledge that, yeah, I may be doing this, I may be a part of it, but I still choose to be a part of this ecosystem because I like the value it's adding to me, but that's a choice you're making. In this case, most people are not making a choice because they don't even know that there is a choice to be made. It's definitely increased, purely because of the fact that a lot of people at least know that there's something like open source software, free software. They've all heard of it with different names, but at least they've heard of something, which say rewind say 10, 15 years, you couldn't say that. Right, most people would be completely blank if you mention this. Now, at least there's an understanding that yes, we have heard of it. We have heard that some company uses free software. At different points, they have interacted with um, various e-governance platforms. That has been a big, channel, at least among the people whom I know, where they've heard about free software or open source software being used for the first time. And of course, the fact that a lot of people also know that, okay, there's something called Linux, which is uh, a much more recognizable brand among the general population today. Um, you know, uh, so I'd say it's definitely improved. Um, Understanding of FOSS has not gone up as much. Okay, but at least people, there's, so I'd say recognition has gone up, understanding has gone up, but not by as much. So there's definitely a lot more for people like us to do to really help drive a deeper understanding among the general population of you know uh, what free and open source software means to their lives and what they can do to actively start using it better. And anyone who is in any way remotely related with technology, if you're not exploring what the free and open source communities have to offer, all I'll say is you're missing out on a lot. And there are great forums out there, be it mailing lists, be it community groups, be it events like IndiaFOSS and MumbaiFOSS and various other Linux users groups, and all of these are avenues to allow you to start exploring the community. I come meet the people, see what is available out here, and I'm sure you will find something that piques your interest.